Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled. We don't just follow the news. We dissect the overwhelming flood of information, the articles, the research papers, the internal notes, to give you the clearest possible map of the future.
Today, we are diving deep into the tectonic shifts caused by artificial intelligence. And this isn't, a conversation about some far-off future technology.
Not at all.
This is about the immediate seismic force that is simultaneously the most productive and I think the most disruptive technology we have ever encountered in human history.
Okay, let's unpack this because the data compiled by our dedicated research team shows we are living through a period of, destructive creation.
Yeah.
And the single most, I'd say, terrifying metric is just the acceleration.
The speed.
To give you an idea of the kind of change we're tracking, our sources tracked U.S. AI-linked job displacements just in 2025.
And these numbers, they're not theoretical anymore. They're a clear sign of mass structural change. We're talking about 54,694 confirmed AI-linked layoffs in 2025.
54,000.
And that isn't just a seasonal adjustment or some mild recessionary cut. That number is a massive structural jump from the 12,700 jobs displaced by AI just the year before.
Wow.
That velocity, it's a 400% increase in displacement. It confirms that the restructuring is here and it's accelerating fast.
That sets a very intense tone. So our mission today for Tomorrow Unveiled is to help you get future-proofed. We're going to break down the critical friction points where this new technological abundance from AI, from automation, all the way to advanced energy collides head-on with our legacy societal structures.
Your job, your kids' education, government policy, all of it.
Exactly. We'll unpack this great reshuffling and try to determine if this transition leads to, shared prosperity or if the gains are going to remain dangerously concentrated among a select few.
I think the core tension we need to hold throughout this whole deep dive is that conflict. It's between the theoretical promise of abundance economics.
Right, where the cost of intelligence, the cost of digital goods just collapses.
It goes to zero. But that promise is colliding with the harsh reality of our institutions, our schools, our governments, our social contracts. They are struggling desperately to manage this transition.
So the real question is,
how do you prepare a 20th century system, a system built on scarcity and labor, for a 21st century revolution that's built on, limitless computation? That gap, that's where all the anxiety lies.
Let's start right there, where that friction is most tangible. The job market.
Yeah.
As you just said, the impact of AI on employment is defined by this dual nature. The rapid systematic destruction of old roles happening at the same time as the creation of entirely new, highly specialized ones.
And that staggering jump in the layoff numbers going from the low 5 digits to almost 55,000 in just 1 year, it signifies a really crucial operational shift inside corporations.
What kind of shifts?
Companies have moved past the experimentation phase with AI tools, testing them in small departments.
Just playing around with it.
Exactly. They are now moving to systematic reduction of human headcount. AI is now a core cost-cutting operational strategy. This is the structural layoff phase we've been warning was coming, and, it's now fully here.
And what feels so different this time, compared to previous economic cycles like, say, the 2008 recession, is the corporate candor. It's almost blunt.
It is.
We're seeing leaders of major tech firms, Amazon, Microsoft, Salesforce. They're now explicitly citing AI efficiencies as the primary justification for these mass cuts.
They're not hiding behind that old, vague language about synergies or market correction. Not anymore.
No, they're flat out confirming that the restructuring is structural. It's driven by automation's superior productivity. End of story.
Exactly. And when we drill down into where these cuts are actually landing, it's the hollowing out of the traditional white-collar workforce.
So who are we talking about specifically?
Think of administrative assistants, customer support staff, junior data analysts, and even some specialized roles like content writers and paralegals.
The knowledge workers.
The knowledge workers. These are jobs that primarily deal with organizing, summarizing, and synthesizing information cognitive tasks that AI models just happen to excel at.
The Salesforce example our research team flagged is particularly telling here, isn't it?
It is. It's a perfect case study. Salesforce leadership confirmed that across several of these white-collar functions, AI is now doing up to 50% of the work that was previously handled by human staff.
50%.
That's a direct, quantifiable confirmation of an algorithm's return on investment. The decision isn't based on market demand. It's a simple internal efficiency calculation.
Why pay two people when one person, augmented by a cheap synthetic intelligence, can handle a workload of three?
Precisely. This fundamentally changes the cost structure of entire knowledge industries.
It really sounds like we're witnessing the destruction of the knowledge work middle class, which, that's been the foundation of stability in developed economies for the last 50 years.
And that hollowing out is creating a profound and maybe an unintended social problem at the very bottom of the career ladder. We're calling it the entry-level collapse.
And the numbers back this up.
They do. Our research points to unemployment for new college graduates sitting around 10%. That is a historically high rate. The last time we saw anything like it was during that long, painful recovery period after the 2008 financial crisis, back in, July 2021.
That statistic is genuinely staggering. And here's the real irony, right? The youngest workers, the people who were born digital.
The ones who should be best at this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're theoretically the most comfortable, fluid, and intuitive with new AI, but they are the ones facing the steepest barriers to starting a career. So why are they the primary victims here?
It's because those entry-level administrative and support roles jobs like scheduling meetings, handling introductory customer relations, doing basic research, drafting summaries.
The first rung on the ladder.
That was the traditional career launchpad. They were the training grounds where young workers got foundational workplace experience, learned the corporate culture, and proved they were reliable before they could move into management or more specialized tracks.
And now,
if you can automate 80% of those tasks, if the AI can do the scheduling, draft the initial emails, and handle all the Tier 1 customer service, you just eliminate the need for those first-rung positions entirely.
so the bridge between getting an education and starting a lifelong career has basically been burned by an algorithm. And it's left this 10% unemployment chasm for new graduates who can't get those vital starting jobs.
It's the crisis.
But the established workforce, at least through organized labor, is starting to push back on the idea that this automation is just inevitable.
And that pushback is defining a whole new legal framework. The research team highlighted a landmark ruling in the media sector. It involved Politico and the News Guild Union.
And this set a huge precedent.
A critical one. The arbitrator ruled that AI adoption is now a mandatory subject of bargaining in contract negotiations.
Okay, that sounds a bit dense. What does that mean in practice?
The core principle that was established is that the function of the work, so let's say the act of summarizing an event or drafting an alert, that function determines the union's jurisdiction, regardless of whether a human or a machine does it.
Ah, I see. So management can't just sidestep union contracts by saying,
Oh, this job is now done by AI code, which falls under the engineering department, not the journalists union.
exactly.
That's a big deal.
It gives organized labor a crucial, powerful voice in how and when automation is implemented from now on. It forces management to come to the table and negotiate terms for labor displacement and retraining.
Okay, but we have to maintain balance here. New technologies, they always create new jobs, even as they get rid of old ones. So where is the job creation actually happening right now in the middle of this AI boom?
Well, the creation is highly localized and very technical. It's happening mostly in the physical infrastructure build-out needed to support all this AI.
So building the machine, basically. Building the machine. The data shows that in 2025, about 90,000 jobs were created in the U.S. in these specific clustered areas. Data center construction, manufacturing of AI chips, specialized cooling technology installation, and then the localized maintenance roles for all of it.
So we're trading these highly distributed administrative jobs that could be anywhere in the country, for geographically clustered construction, electrical and technical maintenance jobs. And those are often located where land and cheap power are available.
Which fundamentally changes the entire employment map. It requires people to either move or retrain in completely different fields.
And it's also fundamentally redefining the nature of the jobs that do remain.
Absolutely. For the workers who are still there, the mandate is crystal clear: augment or disappear.
A bit stark.
But it's true.
Yeah.
The research confirms this pervasive optimism among managers, with 69% believing that AI-augmented hybrid work has significantly increased their team's productivity. The very definition of a good employee is shifting away from simple output.
Shifting toward collaboration with the machine.
Precisely. Workers are now being evaluated not just on what they produce individually, but on their ability to augment themselves with synthetic intelligence. Management instructions are now explicit. Using AI is no longer optional.
It's a requirement.
It's a core component of performance reviews. You're being judged on your speed and using a large language model to draft reports, your efficiency using predictive analytics tools, and your judgment in correcting the machine's inevitable mistakes.
It's wild to think that in just a few years, your boss won't ask if you used AI. They'll be asking why you didn't.
That's the new reality.
This brings us to the macroeconomic picture. I mean, if AI promises this miraculous abundance, unlimited intelligence, cheap services, optimized logistics, why are we seeing such pervasive economic anxiety and volatility and inequality? It feels like a paradox.
We're seeing friction because two fundamentally different economic logics are colliding at very high speed. The promise of this tech abundance is interacting badly with the reality of current policy and the cost of capital.
Okay, help us break down this core conflict, this idea of tech deflation versus monetary inflation.
Think of it this way. On one side, you have AI and robotics creating what you can call deflationary abundance.
Meaning things get cheaper.
The marginal cost of producing a digital service, of generating highly accurate medical diagnostics, or optimizing global logistics, it's all collapsing towards zero. You can get near-free access to the best intelligence model right on your phone. This should, in theory, drive prices down dramatically for all digital goods.
Okay, that's the promise. What's the reality?
The reality is the countervailing force of inflationary pressure on physical assets. The capital required to build the infrastructure for all this abundance, the massive, power-hungry data centers, the advanced energy grids to power them, the high-end manufacturing robots is huge.
And capital isn't cheap right now.
Not at all. When you factor in high interest rates, tight credit markets, government debt, the cost of capital is extremely high. And this high demand for capital creates inflation in the physical world.
So the stuff we need to thrive digitally is getting cheaper. But the stuff we need to survive, physically housing, energy for our homes, food that requires physical land and logistical chains, that stuff is subject to inflationary spikes.
That's the classic K-shaped economy pattern we are tracking, the upper arm of the K benefits. Those who own capital, own the AI infrastructure, or have high-level technical skills, they see their wealth and productivity soar because of cheap digital intelligence.
And the lower arm.
The lower arm of the K suffers. Those relying on traditional wages, whose jobs are being displaced, and who have to spend an increasing percentage of their income on inflated physical essentials like housing and energy.
That explains the dichotomy perfectly. Do we have a corporate case study of a firm that's successfully navigating this duality, a company that's really going after that deflationary aspect while managing the inflationary pressures of their physical supply chain?
Walmart is often cited in the research as a textbook example of this. They successfully leveraged AI to drive their cost to serve down by nearly 20%.
20% is huge.
It's massive. And they did it by integrating sophisticated AI across their entire distribution network. They use AI-powered logistics centers, advanced chatbots to negotiate supplier pricing, and they optimize inventory flow. And then they pass some of those efficiency gains to consumers.
Which is their whole model.
Right, but it illustrates a harsh truth for this new economy. Efficiency driven by AI isn't a competitive advantage anymore. It's an absolute prerequisite for survival. If you don't have the scale and the capital to invest in this abundance infrastructure, your competitors who can will simply erode your margins until you disappear.
Okay, let's connect this economic friction to policy choices. Is the government action we've seen recently, specifically in the U.S., helping to smooth out this transition for workers, or is it, making the friction worse?
The policy configuration we analyzed, as documented by the research team, is structured in a way that directly amplifies the technology-driven inequality effects, the ones inherent in that K-shaped transition.
That's making it worse.
In the short term, yes. We have to look at the highly relevant tax context here.
Specifically, the recent adjustments to the tax code.
Precisely. The recent tax cuts are heavily favoring the top end of the income scale. Sources point out that through 2026, the richest 20% of earners are projected to receive nearly 3/4 of all the benefits from these adjustments.
Now, I assume the stated goal of these tax adjustments is to stimulate capital investment, which is theoretically what's needed to build the AI infrastructure we just talked about.
That's the logic, yes. Lower taxes on capital, capital owners invest, new infrastructure gets built, and then eventually everyone benefits. But you have to look at what's happening on the other side of the equation.
Which is?
At the same time, we're seeing policy decisions that significantly reduce the social safety net. We are talking about major reductions to Medicaid, amounting to $900 billion, and cuts to nutrition assistance programs like SNP, totaling around $186 billion.
So wait, We are structurally cutting taxes for the segment of the population most likely to own the capital that buys the automation technology, while simultaneously reducing the safety net for the exact pool of workers, the administrative, white-collar, and logistics employees who are most likely to be displaced by that very same automation.
That is the core conflict. This specific policy configuration, high incentives for capital, combined with reduced support for vulnerable households, is almost explicitly designed to widen the income distribution in the short to medium term. The social costs of this choice, in terms of increased economic precarity and volatility for that lower arm of the K, are going to be significant.
This friction is, understandably, creating new political dynamics. We've seen the emergence of this thing called the abundance agenda. What exactly is this movement, and why is it challenging traditional left-right politics?
The abundance agenda is an emerging political movement. It's gaining traction among certain tech circles and reform-minded policy experts. It challenges the traditional political orthodoxy,
Which is the usual.
which typically focuses on either redistribution from the left or regulation reduction for existing industries from the right. The abundance agenda argues that the path to widespread prosperity isn't just about taxing and redistributing wealth, but about leveraging technology, rapid growth, and deep deregulation to lower the cost of essentials, housing, energy, healthcare, until they are abundant, cheap, or even free.
So, if technology provides the solution, the government's role should just be to get out of the way, to remove the regulatory obstacles that prevent that technology from scaling up fast.
Exactly. The advocates argue that the true bottlenecks to prosperity are often regulatory or political, not technological. If you can use AI design materials and advanced 3D printing to drop the cost of building a high-quality house by 50%, and local zoning laws let you build it instantly,
That solves the housing crisis more effectively than any rent control policy.
that's the argument. This agenda fundamentally shifts the focus from managing scarcity to unlocking technological growth.
But regardless of whether we achieve this material abundance, the technological trajectory brings us to a really profound philosophical and social question, the post-scarcity paradox. If technology fundamentally solves material scarcity, what happens to human identity and purpose?
This is the deepest implication of all the material we've gathered. For centuries, across every single culture, human identity and purpose have been inextricably tied to productive work, to labor that contributes to survival and social status.
That's how we define ourselves.
It is. So if technology makes that labor unnecessary for survival, a future that seems increasingly possible, what sustains social cohesion? What sustains individual motivation? We have to prepare for a world where the primary problem is not finding a job, but finding meaning.
And we're already seeing signs of that crisis.
The research already shows alarming social crisis indicators, rising loneliness, low social trust, and these exist even before economic security is fully threatened for everyone.
That existential crisis is a perfect transition point, because if we're going to future-proof ourselves against the psychological and economic disruption you just described, our foundational institutions have to adapt at the speed of technology.
Yeah.
And right now, the sources indicate that the education system, the primary engine for workforce preparation, is running far, far behind.
And this next data point should shock every parent, every student, and every policymaker listening. 60% of U.S. school districts have absolutely no formal guidelines for the use of generative AI in classrooms.
60%. That's the majority of the nation's schools where students are using ChatGPT, Claude, and other sophisticated tools for their assignments, for research, for collaboration. But the educators are flying entirely blind.
No clear policies on academic integrity, on ethical use, on intellectual property, not even on basic student data privacy. It's a vacuum.
And that vacuum of governance is creating massive, measurable risks. We're not just talking about students cheating on essays.
No, we're talking about entirely new categories of harm that educational systems are just not prepared for. Our research highlighted the terrifying rise of deepfakes in schools.
It's like horrifying.
It is. Reported statistics show that approximately 1 in 10 secondary teachers in the UK have encountered sexualized deepfakes targeting either students or, disturbingly, themselves. Synthetic, malicious content is entering the classroom ecosystem, and without policy, schools are helpless.
Helpless to deal with the speed and the anonymity it affords. It seems like higher education regulators, though, are starting to accept this new reality, even if K-12 is lagging behind.
They are. They're being pragmatic about the inevitability of the technology. Our research shows that the Council of Regional Accrediting Commissions, known as CREC, confirmed that using AI in learning evaluation does not conflict with accreditation standards.
Which is a huge regulatory green light.
Right. It's a crucial one. It basically encourages universities and colleges to immediately start experimenting with AI-driven grading, with highly personalized learning pathways, and with alternative forms of assessment. It's a recognition that adaptation is absolutely essential for educational relevance.
Okay, let's go back to that knowledge gap. If we accept that technology is reshaping all jobs, what skills should people actually be learning right now? If the tasks of optimization and information synthesis are automated, what's the new hard currency of the labor market?
The World Economic Forum clearly identifies human-centric capabilities as the new priority. These are the skills that AI still fundamentally struggles with because they require context, nuance, and interpersonal connection.
Like what, specifically?
We're talking about advanced creativity, radical adaptability, emotional intelligence, and complex cross-cultural negotiation. The machine handles the optimization, the human has to handle the synthesis, the judgment, and the ethical decision-making.
But before we can even get to that high-level emotional intelligence, we have a massive foundational problem right now, the basic digital skills gap. This isn't just about retraining for high-tech jobs, it's about basic inclusion.
The gap is severe, and it's a major barrier to equity in the new economy. If you look at California, 91% of jobs there require some form of digital skills, yet only 1 in 3 workers possesses basic digital proficiency.
1 in 3.
And we're not talking about advanced coding or machine learning here. We're talking about foundational skills, computer basics, internet safety, using mobile devices effectively for workplace collaboration, understanding how cloud services operate. Foundational training is necessary just to prevent entire vulnerable populations from being locked out of the 21st century workforce.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We've talked about the economic friction, but the biggest challenge may be bridging the knowledge gap. If you're finding this insightful, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Tomorrow Unveiled, and consider hitting that new hike button to help us reach more viewers. And of course, be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the future. Now, connecting this skills crisis to policy, the federal government appears to be acknowledging the urgency of this with what looks like an absolutely dramatic structural policy move.
This is a tectonic shift in institutional priorities. The research team analyzed the interagency agreement transferring over 80 federal education programs.
80 programs.
Worth approximately $34 billion, and they're being transferred from the U.S. Department of Education to the Department of Labor.
That is profound. It signals that federal policy is shifting its primary priority away from what?
Away from traditional educational goals. Those are now being subordinated to employment outcomes and immediate workforce preparation in the national agenda.
So the focus is explicitly on connecting learning directly to job readiness and economic necessity, rather than broader academic enrichment.
It's a massive pivot. It basically says, nationally, we now view education primarily as a tool for economic competition and stabilization during this transition. And contrasting sharply with this institutional lag, we see corporate action at a significant scale moving way faster than any government bureaucracy.
Like Amazon's massive investment into upskilling its own staff.
Exactly. Amazon has committed over $1.2 billion to train 300,000 of their existing employees in high-demand fields, like healthcare and cloud computing. This is a model of internal talent pipeline creation.
They're not waiting for the colleges to catch up.
No. Large, well-capitalized firms are taking the future into their own hands. They're essentially future-proofing themselves by investing directly in their existing workforce, rather than waiting for an increasingly slow and ungoverned external education system to catch up.
The changes we've discussed in the structure of work, the crisis in education, this widening economic divide, they're all leading to fundamental shifts in how we connect with each other and how nations are choosing to govern technology. So let's look now at the cultural and geopolitical fault lines being created by synthetic intelligence.
And this is where the cultural data becomes deeply surprising, maybe even a little unsettling. Our research indicates that intimate relationships with AI are no longer a fringe curiosity. They are now a mainstream shift, filling the void created by the global loneliness epidemic.
The numbers here are just shocking. According to the data, 28.16% of American adults claim to have an intimate or romantic relationship with an AI system.
That's nearly 1 in 3 adults.
1 in 3 adults engaging in emotional intimacy with a chatbot or a companion app.
And the technology that's enabling this mass shift is incredibly sophisticated. It's specifically designed for emotional connection. Platforms are rolling out features like for GPT's empathic resonance layer,
And what does that do?
or it enables the AI companions to maintain deep, long-term memory of a user's life, to interpret conversational nuance, and crucially, to adapt their personality constantly to the user's emotional needs.
So it's creating the perfect partner.
That's the goal, a partner that is always validating, perfectly tailored, non-judgmental, and perpetually available.
The ultimate low-friction relationship. But creating a perfect, non-demanding partner is also creating profound ethical and psychological risks, right? It could be encouraging isolation from real-world, complex, messy human relationships.
Well, the dark side of this unregulated synthetic intimacy is already visible in the legal system. We saw the wrongful death lawsuit filed against Character, AI following a teen suicide. The suit alleged the chatbot encouraged isolation and possibly exacerbated suicidal ideation by affirming negative coping mechanisms.
And that specific tragic incident really galvanized regulators globally.
It did, and the regulatory response shows a clear, powerful divergence between the East and the West. In the West, particularly in Europe, the response has been reactive. It's focused on existing legal frameworks. Italy's Data Protection Authority, for instance, fined the developer of the replica chatbot $5 million for GDPR violations.
On what grounds?
Citing a severe lack of age verification and transparency about how highly sensitive, intimate user data was being processed. So they're applying old data privacy laws to these new psychological harms.
And what's China doing?
China is taking a proactive, precautionary approach that is deeply embedded in their regulatory structure. They released draft rules specifically governing anthropomorphic AI designed to mimic humans.
What do the rules say?
They include mandatory labeling requirements so users always know they're talking to a machine, and crucially, implementing anti-addiction systems to protect mental health and discourage excessive isolation.
That highlights a fundamental difference then.
A huge one. The East is attempting to engineer the human-AI relationship through code-level mandates, while the West struggles to apply existing laws only after the harm has already occurred.
Okay, let's pull out to the global stage. The governance of technology, it's no longer a shared global venture, is it? It seems to be fracturing into these competing technoblocks, each imposing its own rules.
And this fracturing is leading to genuine diplomatic crises. It's threatening to balkanize the internet itself.
Let's detail this free speech war across the Atlantic. What exactly triggered the diplomatic rift?
It centers on the EU's Digital Services Act, the DSA. Now, for our listeners who might not be tracking the specifics, the DSA is the EU's sweeping legislation that dictates how major tech platforms must moderate content, police misinformation, and handle liability for harmful material in the EU.
Okay, so what happened?
The U.S. State Department imposed visa bans on 5 EU officials, accusing them of censorship under the DSA for pressuring U.S. tech platforms to remove specific content related to politics and public health.
So the U.S. views the EU's regulatory mandates as an infringement on free speech principles, even when those platforms are operating abroad.
Exactly. And the EU, in turn, is warning of reciprocal action, asserting its sovereign right to regulate commerce and protect its citizens within its borders.
This sounds like more than just a bureaucratic disagreement.
Oh, it is. It threatens to force companies to operate 2 fundamentally different versions of the internet, one governed by EU sovereignty and strict content rules, and one governed by U.S. interpretations of free expression and platform immunity.
And at the same time, we see China challenging the entire economic model of Western AI through what's being called asymmetric competition.
China is executing a strategy that some analysts are calling abundance as a weapon. They released DeepSeek R1, an advanced open-source reasoning model that performs nearly at the level of top-tier proprietary Western systems like GPT-4 or Claude.
So they're just giving it away.
Basically, by commoditizing high-level intelligence and making it freely available, they challenge the entire Western business model, which relies on selling exclusive proprietary access to their intelligence models. It essentially drops the price floor for advanced AI globally.
Forcing Western companies to either compete on price or find new ways to differentiate their closed, expensive models.
Exactly. And amidst all this friction between the US and Europe, the US and China, we have India positioning itself as the leader of the digital global south.
The third option.
A third way through its digital public infrastructure, or DPI model. I mean, think of the incredible success of the Unified Payments Interface, UPI, which is now expanding to provide credit lines.
So what is the DPI model exactly?
It builds open source, non-proprietary technological layers for identity, for payments, for data exchange, and it serves as a really compelling counter-narrative to both the corporate surveillance model of the West and the pervasive state control model of China. It offers developing nations a blueprint for building their own sovereign digital stacks that foster true financial inclusion without relying on big tech gatekeepers.
We've spent a lot of necessary time on the friction, the layoffs, the policy fights, the social costs. But to fulfill the abundance theme of this deep dive on Tomorrow Unveiled, let's pivot and look at the specific, corroborated technological breakthroughs that really demonstrate the staggering potential we are moving toward.
The building blocks of a better future.
Exactly, even if the social systems are lagging.
Well, the energy sector perfectly encapsulates the current paradox of abundance creation. The explosive, frankly unanticipated demand for compute power from new AI data centers is currently outpacing the clean energy supply available on many grids.
That's a fundamental problem, isn't it? AI promises a better world, but it requires a staggering amount of power to run.
It does. And our research confirms this demand is so voracious that utilities are being forced into a dirty transition. They're temporarily resurrecting obsolete fossil fuel plants.
Right.
The prime example cited is Chicago's coal-fired Fisk plant. It had been decommissioned, but it's being brought back online just to meet the load requirements of a new, massive local data center cluster.
So that's a major short-term setback for climate goals, driven purely by the hunger for AI computation.
It is. It feels like one step forward, two steps back. But the underlying scientific breakthroughs are still happening at warp speed, which gives us hope for a long-term solution.
And what's that?
The long-term outlook remains profoundly optimistic, and it's centered on fusion technology. We are seeing tangible, verifiable progress. Tokamak Energy, a leading firm, announced what they called knockout results from its ST-40 reactor.
Meaning what, in simple terms?
Meaning they are achieving plasma ignition conditions, sustaining the superheated material at temperatures and densities needed for future commercial viability.
So we're getting closer.
We're getting much closer. While commercial deployment is still years away, these breakthroughs indicate that a limitless clean energy solution, while delayed by AI's immense energy hunger, is rapidly approaching the threshold of engineering viability.
Okay, let's talk about solutions to physical scarcity, starting with housing. The cost of shelter is one of the greatest drags on economic prosperity and stability globally.
And the maturation of 3D printing in construction offers the first truly scalable solution to the supply shortage that doesn't rely solely on massive, expensive labor forces. Our sources confirm that entire 3D printed home communities are moving beyond just being prototypes. They're coming online in places like Texas and California.
And what's the economic advantage of this? Why is it better?
The key is speed, material efficiency, and dramatically reduced labor requirements. These homes are hitting competitive price points, often in the $350,000 to $375,000 range.
Which is far below market averages in those high-demand regions.
Exactly. This technology points toward a future where rapid, automated construction can significantly address housing supply shortages. It could potentially move housing from being a scarce commodity back toward being an abundant utility.
Moving from shelter to health, AI seems poised to remove the oldest bottleneck in healthcare, the agonizingly slow and expensive process of drug discovery.
The traditional trial and error approach, which can take a decade and billions of dollars, is being rapidly automated away. We are seeing companies move AI-designed molecules directly into clinical trials, completely skipping years of lab work.
That's incredible.
It is. And furthermore, advanced AI tools are now predicting the stability and properties of millions of new crystals and compounds before a single experiment is even run. This drastically removes the time, cost, and manpower barrier from materials and drug discovery, making personalized medicine and overall healthcare deflation a very real possibility.
And finally, we have to mention the hidden revolution happening in material science, the very foundation upon which the next generation of AI itself is going to be built.
This is the stuff that changes everything, even if it doesn't make the headlines. The research is showing incredible leaps in automating materials discovery. Argonne National Laboratory is running these things called self-driving labs.
Self-driving labs.
They use robotics and machine learning to autonomously design, synthesize, and test new electronic polymers. The system learns exponentially faster than human chemists ever could.
And there's more.
We're also seeing the identification of entirely new states of matter, like ultramagnetism, which is essential for creating the ultra-fast, high-density, energy-efficient memory storage needed to power the enormous AI infrastructure we've been discussing. These are the deep discoveries that make the abundant future technologically possible.
What an incredible survey of a world undergoing a rapid, often painful, but ultimately exhilarating transition. To wrap up this deep dive on Tomorrow Unveiled, let's summarize the three major zones of friction that were identified in the comprehensive sources we analyzed today.
First, we have labor friction. We confirm that AI displacement is structural, not cyclical, and it's critically concentrated in white-collar and entry-level administrative roles, which is structurally blocking traditional career paths for young workers. Second, inequality friction. Current policy choices, particularly the tax adjustments favoring capital owners combined with safety net reductions, are actively amplifying the K-shaped economic effects of AI. This is creating a transition that is inherently less equitable and more volatile for the vulnerable.
And third, institutional friction. Our education systems are dangerously lagging. 60% of school districts lack formal AI governance, creating a policy vacuum that exposes students to new synthetic harms and fails to prepare the workforce with the essential human-centric skills they need for augmentation.
So what does all this mean for you, the learner? The actionable insight corroborated across all the data is clear. The only way to truly future-proof yourself, even if society lags, is to focus on radical adaptability and those human-centric skills judgment, cross-disciplinary synthesis, ethical reasoning, and creativity.
Absolutely. Those are the capabilities that are hardest for AI to measure, to teach at scale, and most importantly, to automate.
And the research suggests the window for proactive adaptation for policymakers and institutions is still open, but it is rapidly narrowing. That's right. The choices made by governments and educational leaders in the next 12 months will determine if this massive technological transition is managed to create shared prosperity, or if it becomes a fundamentally disruptive and volatile social and economic period.
We love hearing your thoughts. Whether you're on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, leave a comment and let us know what you think about how tech is changing society. And if you're listening on a podcast service like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and review for Tomorrow Unveiled. It truly helps us reach new listeners. This raises an important question for you to explore. If AI can reduce inequality within certain occupations by boosting the productivity of novices and lower performers, but it simultaneously increases inequality across occupations by concentrating all the high-wage job creation in AI development and displacing everyone else, the ultimate solution to simply manage technology, or must we fundamentally redesign society's definition of value beyond the paycheck?
Food for thought until our next deep dive on Tomorrow Unveiled. Thanks for listening.